Have you ever been waiting for what feels like, I don't know, an absolute eternity for something to happen and time just...
Well, it drags.
Oh, totally.
Maybe you're staring at a traffic light that refuses to change, or you're like endlessly scrolling through your phone in a queue.
Or the classic one, yeah, waiting for that kettle to finally boil.
Exactly. Every single second feels like a whole minute. Or, the flip side, have you ever been so completely lost in something you love?
Uh-huh.
A hobby, maybe, or just a really great conversation, and suddenly, boom, hours have vanished, just gone. You're left thinking, where did the entire day go?
It's such a universal human thing, isn't it? These everyday little time warps. We experience them constantly, but we barely, give them a second thought.
Right.
But what if they aren't just random bloops in how we perceive things? What if they're actually these incredible windows showing us the real surprising ways our brains literally sculpt time?
Exactly. And that, my friend, is precisely our mission today on The Deep Dive. We are about to take you on a seriously mind-bending journey.
Hold on to your hats. We're unpacking this revolutionary idea that how we perceive time isn't just like a subjective feeling. No, it's actually a deeply structured, almost fractal phenomena.
Yeah, we're diving deep into this fascinating new perspective that shows how our brains literally build time, bend it, even, get this, lubricate it.
Lubricate time, I love that. And this new way of thinking, it explains basically everything from those intense moments of slow motion stress we sometimes hear about.
Right, like in emergencies.
To that soul-crushing drag of just being plain bored.
The core idea, the kind of poetic heart of what we're exploring today, drawn from these incredible sources we've been digging into, is basically this. A watched kettle never boils because when we narrow our focus, we stop experiencing simultaneity.
Okay.
And instead, we just generate endless succession. It's like we flatten out this rich, layered experience of time into just a single, flat, one-dimensional line.
Wow. Boom. See, that hints at these really profound concepts what the material calls temporal length. That linear tick-tock, second after second progression.
Uh-huh. The standard way we think about it.
And temporal depth. That's the richness, the layers of simultaneous events happening within any single now. We're about to peel back those layers like, I don't know, a perfectly ripe avocado.
Tasty temporal layers.
So if you are ready to have your mind completely blown wide open, maybe redefine everything you thought you knew about the clock on the wall and the clock inside your head.
Then you really don't want to miss what's coming next.
Absolutely. If you're nodding along right now thinking, yeah, tell me more, then please hit that like button. Definitely subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And hey, consider joining our community for even more exclusive deep dives.
You are seriously in for a wild, time-bending ride today.
The elasticity of time, why your kettle never boils.
Okay, let's really dive into this elasticity thing. We've all felt time warp, haven't we?
Definitely.
Think about moments of just intense stress. It's almost like the world shifts into super slow motion, right?
Yeah, you hear these stories.
You hear accounts from, say, police officers in these incredibly high-stakes situations describing how they could see unbelievably fine details, like a bulge under someone's jacket or the glint on a dropped beer can, moving with this almost impossible slowness.
It's incredible. They talk about taking in so much information in what was objectively just a fraction of a second.
It's truly astonishing. And it's not just limited to, life or death stuff.
No, not at all. Consider professional baseball players. Some report actually seeing the seams on the pitched ball as it's hurtling towards them at 90 plus miles an hour?
That's insane.
Or martial arts masters who describe watching an opponent's movements in slow motion, allowing them to react with what seems like superhuman speed.
Okay, so what's the common thread here? What unites these experiences?
Well, it seems to be this total, absolute immersion, a kind of hyper-focus that fundamentally alters their perceived reality of time.
So it's not just about fear or danger then, because we see equally dramatic shifts in time perception in positive states too, right?
Yeah.
Even serene ones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Take meditating Buddhist monks, for instance. They've described achieving states of time stretching or sometimes even a feeling of time standstill when they focus intensely, deeply on just one single thing. Ancient texts like the Mahabharata talk about this, how in these deep meditative states, the external senses kind of quiet down, become inhibited, and all mental activity revolves around just one object. And that leads to this profound slowing of perceived time.
And this connects perfectly to Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's famous idea of the flow state, doesn't it?
Exactly. Whether you're a musician completely lost in a complex piece, or an athlete performing at their absolute peak, or even just kids totally absorbed in imaginative play.
Yeah.
It's this incredible merging of awareness and action. Goals become effortless, distractions fade, and the sense of time just distorts. Hours can literally vanish into thin air.
Yeah.
You look up and wonder where the whole day went.
Been there. But then there's the flip side, the one we all know, maybe a little too well, the mundane drag. That excruciating wait for a bus that's late, the snail-paced supermarket queue, or just plain soul-crushing boredom.
In those moments, time doesn't just slow down, it becomes almost viscous.
Yeah.
It drags. It feels like it's nearly grinding to a halt.
It's that watched kettle thing, but amplified, like tenfold.
What's truly fascinating, though, is that across all these wildly different scenarios, intense stress, deep meditation, the joy of flow, the agony of boredom, there seems to be this powerful common denominator, a narrowing of focus. In every single one of these cases, parts of our perceptual system effectively shut down, leading to a really, really narrow focus.
Ah, okay.
Think about the meditating monk. They're actively trying to cut out all unnecessary sensory input to achieve that single flow of ideas, what they call dhyana.
Right.
The police officer in that high-stress situation, they often experience tunnel vision. Sounds might fade out. They're focusing intensely on one critical detail.
And athletes.
Completely absorbed in the task, filtering out every distraction. It's all about that narrow beam of attention.
Okay, so if it's not just about our brains suddenly speeding up, what is the core mechanism here? For years, the common idea was adrenaline, right? That it just speeds up our neural processing.
Yeah, that was the popular theory. But experiments have pretty much debunked that. There was this really cool study with skydivers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they estimated how long their free fall lasted. And while they did overestimate the duration compared to people watching from the ground, they couldn't perceive flashing numbers on a special wrist device any faster than normal.
So adrenaline doesn't actually make your brain see faster.
Exactly. It doesn't crank up your brain's raw processing speed. That feeling of time dilation, of things slowing down, it seems to be much more about how your brain records and remembers the information later, not how fast it perceives it in the moment.
This is where we need to bring in those two key ideas you mentioned earlier, right? Temporal depth and temporal length.
Precisely. Let's call them 8 depth and 8 length for short. So when that police officer gets that intense tunnel vision, their experience of now becomes incredibly limited, like a laser beam.
Okay.
Their world, for all practical purposes, contains fewer things happening simultaneously. The sound of their partner's gun firing, the full view of the street, all those rich simultaneous details just vanish.
So it's the reduction in simultaneous stuff, the reduction in temporal depth.
That seems to be the secret sauce, yeah. When at depth goes down, time feels like it stretches out.
Which leads us straight into this really fascinating paradox, doesn't it? Events that feel incredibly slow or really long while they're happening are often remembered later as being surprisingly short. Think about a really packed movie, tons of plot twists, rapid-fire scenes. While you're watching, it might feel like it flies by.
Yeah, totally engaging.
But when you look back, it feels like this huge, epic story that must have taken ages.
Right. And conversely, those monotonous, uneventful periods, like a boring meeting that feels like it lasts forever.
Kill me now kind of thing.
Exactly. That really dilates the moment, makes it crawl. But later, when you think back on that week or month, that boring stretch just kind of shortens and fades away in your memory. It leaves almost no trace.
Thomas Mann wrote about this brilliantly in The Magic Mountain, didn't he? His character, Hans Castorp, noticed that really interesting, event-filled times shorten and quicken the hour while you're in them.
Right.
But they give the overall course of time breadth, weight, and solidity when you look back over longer periods.
It's such a profound observation. And this paradox, this weird difference between experiencing time now versus how we remember it, is explained beautifully by what the source calls the degrees of simultaneity, basically, how much temporal depth we perceive.
So it's not just about how long something was, but how rich it was, how much was happening at once.
Exactly. How many layers were in that moment? And to really get our heads around that, we need to dive into the actual architecture of your perceived now.
Okay, I'm ready. How does the brain actually build this multi-layered present moment? This sounds wild.
It really is. We're about to find out.
The fractal architecture of your now.
All right. So for most of history, we've kind of thought about time in a pretty simple way, right? Like beads on a string.
Yeah, just one thing after another. Linear.
That's the traditional view.
Yeah.
Duration as just pure succession. what our sources are calling temporal length or length. A 2-hour train ride is just 120 1-minute bits lined up.
Flat, one-dimensional. It works fine if you just want to compare how long 2 journeys took, sure.
But, as we just teased, that's clearly not the whole picture when it comes to how we feel time.
Absolutely not. The crucial missing dimension, the one that really defines our subjective experience of duration, is this idea of simultaneity or temporal depth.
Okay.
Our experience of now isn't just some fleeting point in time, like a tiny dot on that string. No, it's our only window to ourselves and the rest of the world. And this now, it turns out, is surprisingly extended, incredibly complex, and just packed with internal structure.
Wow. This idea actually goes way back, right?
Good.
Inspired by philosophers like Husserl.
Yeah, he argued that the now is far from instantaneous. It's extended, and it actively holds on to retentions, which are basically echoes of past events, memories fixed in their before and after sequence.
Okay, echoes of the past.
And pretensions, which are our anticipations of future events, our expectations of what's about to happen.
So past and future are kind of in the present moment.
Exactly. This active interplay between past echoes and future anticipation creates this incredible sense of simultaneity within the present moment itself. It makes the now a truly nested structure.
A nested structure, like those Russian matryoshka dolls.
That's a perfect analogy, yeah. Each doll is nested inside a bigger one, but each also contains a smaller one inside it. Our now is kind of like that. It contains layers of memories, and it simultaneously anticipates future moments, creating this rich, layered, multi-dimensional experience of right now.
That makes sense, because you can't really understand successive events like notes in a melody unless you can put them against a background, right? A context.
Precisely. We need that framework time. A single musical note only really gets its meaning, its depth from the whole tune it's embedded within. That context gives it simultaneity.
Which brings us to the really, really mind-blowing part, the idea of fractality in time itself.
Yeah, this is where it gets wild.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's like, fractal, what? Can you give us the quick ELI 5?
Sure. So a fractal, in simple terms, is a shape or a structure that shows more and more detail the closer you zoom into it. It keeps revealing complexity.
Infinite detail.
Yeah, and here's the really cool part. It's often self-similar. That means parts of the structure look like or resemble the whole thing, just smaller.
Okay, examples.
Think of a coastline, like the British coastline is a classic example. No matter how close you zoom in on a little segment, you find more bays and inlets, more jaggedness. It just keeps going.
Right, or like a fern leaf where the little bits look like the whole leaf.
Exactly. Or mathematical ones like the Koch curve, this crazy shape that manages to have infinite length but fits inside a finite area. Wild, right?
Totally wild. Yep. Okay, so those are spatial fractals. We see them in art, architecture, nature.
Right, like the golden ratio popping up everywhere. But what's even more fascinating for our discussion today is the existence of temporal fractals, patterns in time.
Patterns in time. Like what?
Think of pink noise. You might have heard of white noise, which is random.
Yes, static.
Pink noise is different. It has this specific 1F pattern, meaning lower frequencies are stronger, but in a very particular mathematical relationship across all scales. And you find it everywhere in music, in the rhythm of heartbeats, even in the way earthquakes happen, the timing of foreshocks, main shocks, aftershocks.
Whoa, so these aren't just random occurrences. They have a hidden structure across timescales.
It seems so. They reveal this deep, underlying temporal architecture.
And you mentioned music.
Yeah.
What's a really clear example there?
Musical overtones are perfect. They're integer multiples of a fundamental frequency, like if the main note is 100 hertz, the overtones are 200 hertz, 300 hertz, 400 hertz, and so on.
Okay.
They display this incredible scale and variance. They naturally create consonants, that pleasing sound, and form this beautiful nesting cascade. A single note isn't just one frequency. It's this whole family of related frequencies, a perfectly self-similar, nested temporal fractal structure within that one sound, and your brain hears all that richness.
Wow. Okay, so this idea of fractal time isn't just some abstract math thing.
Not at all. It's deeply embedded in our biology and how we interact with the world. Think about it. You find nested rhythms everywhere, in nature and inside us.
Like what?
Well, neural oscillations in our brain happen at certain frequencies, but they're embedded within slower metabolic rhythms, like our breathing and heart rate. And those are nested within even slower cycles, like tidal rhythms, daily rhythms, seasonal rhythms, astronomical rhythms.
It's layers upon layers of cycles.
Exactly. And here's a really key insight from the source material. A healthy, resilient system, whether it's an ecosystem or a human body, actually displays a fair degree of complexity precisely because of these interwoven nested rhythms. This internal fractal structure is actually a sign of health.
That's fascinating. And sometimes our internal rhythms can get locked onto external ones. You called it entrainment.
Yes, entrainment. And this can actually produce fractal rhythms in the shape of harmonics inside us. A kind of striking example, though a negative one, is how some epileptic seizures can be triggered by flashing lights at, say, 10 cycles per second, 10 hertz.
Oh, wow.
That external rhythm can cause brain waves to lock in at 30 hertz, which is a harmonic, 3 times the frequency, and that can trigger an attack. It's the brain trying to sync up, but in a way that becomes pathological.
But it can work positively, too.
Oh, absolutely. Exposure to something as simple as different colors of light has been shown to influence our heart rate variability, a measure of our internal complexity, either increasing it or reducing it, affecting how adaptively we can respond to change.
So this concept of nested rhythms and complexity, it has real implications for our health, well-being, how we communicate.
Huge implications, and we'll definitely dig into those. Just quickly, before we move on, it's worth mentioning Douglas Hofstadter's distinction between types of causality. He talks about causality by translation, which is basically just describing the same thing happening but on a different level of description, or LOD, within a fractal structure that's different from normal physical causality, the standard A causes B stuff.
Got it. So different levels in the fractal can relate without it being a simple chain reaction.
Exactly. It's another way to see how these nested layers interact.
The brain's magic tricks, corrective distortions, and hidden contexts.
Okay, so our brains are basically these incredible magicians, right? Constantly performing these little tricks, these corrective distortions, to help us make sense of the world, and mostly we don't even notice.
Absolutely. Think about something like perceptual constancy.
What's that again?
It's the reason we see objects as having a fixed size or shape or color, even when things like distance or lighting or perspective are changing drastically. You know, that car driving away looks smaller, but you don't think it's actually shrinking.
Right, my brain just knows it's getting further away.
Exactly. Your brain is doing a ton of behind-the-scenes calculations and corrections to make that happen, to maintain that sense of constancy.
And here's the kicker you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
This isn't something we're just born with, is it? It's mostly an acquired skill.
That's right. There's this famous story, maybe apocryphal but illustrative, about an African native who grew up in dense forest seeing distant buffalo on the plains for the first time. He apparently thought they were insects that then magically grew bigger as he got closer. He just lacked that learned spatial depth perception, the automatic correction for distance, smaller appearance.
Wow. So our brains learn to make these corrections through experience, like that classic corridor illusion.
Perfect example, where the parallel lines of the corridor walls seem to curve inwards or converge in the picture. Our brain is interpreting those 2D lines using learned 3D depth cues, causing the distortion.
Wow. It's not just visual tricks, right? Our ears get in on the act, too.
Oh, yeah. Take the missing fundamental phenomenon in music or sound. It's pretty cool.
Explain that one.
Okay, so if you play a complex sound, like a note from an instrument, but you digitally remove the bass frequency, the lowest fundamental note, guess what?
What?
Your brain still hears it. It fills it in.
No way. Why?
Because the overtones, those high frequencies that are mathematically related, the integer multiples of the missing fundamental are still there. Your brain hears that harmonic series, recognizes the pattern, and essentially says, the fundamental must be there, and it just creates it perceptually.
So our brain literally creates what is physically non-existent based on context.
Precisely. It fills in the gaps to make a coherent whole sound based on the pattern of the overtones. It assumes the whole based on the parts.
Okay, that's amazing. Are there illusions that show when our brain struggles with context?
Definitely. Those auditory illusions like the Shepherd scale or the Risset scale are great examples.
The ones that sound like they're always going up or always going down.
Exactly. It's a pitch that seems to ascend or descend endlessly. The reason it works is because our brain struggles to create temporal depth by finding the overarching context. It can't easily figure out the repeating octave patterns and place them in a larger framework time.
So it gets stuck.
It gets trapped on one level of description, just focusing on the relative pitch change from one note to the next, leading to this weird sonic strange loop that never resolves.
Speaking of strange, what about paintings like that Holbein one, The Ambassadors, that has that weird skull thing, right?
Yes, a fantastic example of incompatible perspectives within one image. When you look at it straight on, it's a standard, detailed Renaissance portrait of two guys.
Right.
But then there's this weird blurry shape across the bottom. If you move way off to the side, to a very specific, unusual viewpoint, suddenly that blurry shape snaps into focus as a perfectly rendered but dramatically distorted skull. It's called an anamorphosis. It brilliantly shows how contradictory perspectives can exist simultaneously in one visual field. Your brain has to choose which one to resolve, which context to focus on, based on your viewpoint.
And you mentioned that plant name, the yesterday, today, tomorrow shrub. How does that fit in?
It's such a lovely, everyday example of this invisible scaffolding of our temporal fractal perspective. This plant has flowers that change color over several days. Maybe deep violet, then light blue, then white.
Okay.
But for a good chunk of time, you see all three colors on the plant at the same time. Yesterday's white ones, today's light blue, tomorrow's deep violet starting to open.
Ah, I see.
The person who named it wasn't just seeing a linear sequence, they were being a fractal observer, seeing both this simultaneous global view, the plant as a whole with all its colors, and the local view of individual flowers changing over time. It reveals how we naturally weave past, present, and future into one rich now.
So our brains aren't just creating depth in space or sound, they're constantly wrestling with temporal depth, too. And this links back to Einstein, right? No absolute simultaneity.
Exactly. Einstein showed us that what's happening at the same time is always relative to the observer. It's context dependent. Shifting your frame of reference shifts those simultaneous layers into the eye of the beholder. Your perception of what's happening together now depends on your own internal state in motion.
And our brain is a master at pulling all this together, all the different senses arriving at different speeds.
Phenomenal at it. It performs sensory integration constantly. It takes auditory signals, visual signals, tactile signals, which all travel at different speeds. Remember, light is way faster than sound. And it weaves them into a single gestalt, a unified experience.
How does it do that?
It operates within what researcher Ernst Poppel called a simultaneity horizon. It basically smooths out the slight time differences. That's why you experience a touch on your nose and a touch on your big toe as simultaneous, even though the nerve signal from your nose reaches your brain much faster. The brain just papers over the difference.
Wow. And you said even understanding different versions of something is a learned skill, like the kid hearing two recordings of the same song.
Right. A young child might hear a live version and a studio version and just think it's the same piece played twice. They haven't yet developed the ability to contextualize them as different interpretations existing within a broader context. Our ability to nest perceptions, to understand variations within a theme, isn't innate. It's learned, and it's crucial for building that rich temporal depth.
So without that overarching context, that framework time, events just feel isolated, random.
Pretty much, yeah. Uncorrelated events are isolated. As the developmental psychologist H.H. Clarke put it, even remembering isn't just pulling up data. It's more like learning by actively arranging past events in new context, giving them new meaning, creating new connections.
It's like trying to understand a random string of letters versus finding a rule or pattern that generated them.
Exactly. That relates to algorithmic complexity. A string of letters is considered random if there's no rule for generating it, whose statement is appreciably shorter than the string itself. It's incompressible. Our brains, though, hate randomness. They crave patterns, rules, compressibility. They crave context and nesting.
Okay, so this constant drive to contextualize, to nest, to find patterns, it isn't just about how we see the world out there. It's actually about how we define ourselves, how we draw the line between me and not me.
That's exactly where this leads. If our brains are such active constructors of reality, what does that mean for the very boundaries of your own personal world? Prepare for some serious boundary issues, in a good way.
Their personal reality boundaries, tools, and the inner-outer world.
Okay, this is where it gets seriously deep, touching on the very nature of self. Our brain is constantly creating this thing called the world observer boundary.
Right, this invisible interface.
Yeah, it connects us to everything else, but it also separates us. It's fundamentally how we define self versus non-self. But here's the mind-blowing part. that boundary is incredibly fluid. It's dynamic. It's not some fixed wall.
Absolutely. Think about how we use tools. Just take a simple walking stick. For someone who relies on it, maybe someone visually impaired or hiking regularly, it quickly stops feeling like a separate object they're holding. It literally becomes an extension of the arm, an extension of their sensory system.
So the boundary shifts.
Exactly. The interfaces where the hand meets the stick and where the tip of the stick meets the ground they blur, they merge into one systemic whole. To the walker, the stick achieves transparency. It becomes functionally invisible as a separate tool. It's just part of them navigating the world.
And this isn't just a philosophical idea, right? It has real-world uses.
Oh, yeah. Robotics engineers use these principles to train adaptive robots to move more smoothly, integrating sensors as part of their body. And in therapy, it's fascinating.
How so?
It's used in treating conditions like unilateral neglect, where someone ignores one side of their body or visual field after a stroke, perhaps. Or think about the famous rubber hand illusion.
Oh, I've seen that, where they trick your brain into feeling a fake hand is yours.
Exactly. By stroking the fake hand and your hidden real hand simultaneously while you watch the fake one, your brain can briefly incorporate that fake hand into your body map. It's a stunning example of a boundary shift, an extension of your perceived self.
So boundaries can shrink, like in neglect, or expand, like with the rubber hand or the walking stick. Our sphere of influence is changeable.
Precisely. And it's not just spatial boundaries that are fluid. We have temporal ones, too.
Temporal boundaries.
Yeah. Our sources emphasize that our brains are constantly generating and sensing time information, deeply embedded in oscillations that exist at many different timescales. Remember those nested rhythms? Rapid neural firings, slower breathing and heartbeats, even linking into daily, seasonal, astronomical cycles.
Right, the fractal layers of time within us.
Exactly. This creates a rich, internal, fractal temporal structure. And our brains are masters at anticipating and compensating within this structure.
Like that monkey experiment you mentioned, with the robot arm.
Yes. That was amazing. The macaque was controlling a cursor with a robot arm. When the researchers introduced a slight delay in the arm's response, the monkey's brain didn't just get annoyed, it rapidly adapted. It essentially learned to predict the delay and compensated for it internally. It effectively skipped the interface, fused its intention with the delayed outcome. To the monkey, the delay vanished. It felt like direct mind control over the cursor.
So it recalibrated its internal timing, its body map, to include the machine's lag. Became a temporally extended observer participant.
Perfectly put. It assimilated the tool's dynamics into its own now.
This leads to this idea of an inside view versus an outside view, right? Endo and exo perspectives.
Exactly. Concepts explored by Otto Russler. The endo perspective is your subjective first-person experience. The exo perspective is the objective third-person view from outside. And Russler argued that the difference between these two perspectives is actually a really useful measure of complexity.
How do you measure that?
Well, you could try to quantify boundary complexity by comparing how many interfaces seem merged and invisible from the inside versus how many distinct parts you can identify from the outside. For the person experiencing it, the endo observer, their world observer boundary, just expands. It becomes this meaningful, unified whole spanning their now and that complex fractal structure we talked about. It becomes invisible to them. They don't see the layers. They just are the whole integrated system.
Okay, and within that expanded now, different kinds of anticipation are happening.
Right. There's strong anticipation or endo-anticipation. This is when you incorporate a model of yourself and your environment into your predictions. This is where final causation comes in that idea from Aristotle.
The future influencing the present.
Yeah. Your future goal determines your present actions. Planning that birthday party is the classic example. The future event, the party, causes your present actions, sending invites, buying cake. The future is pulling the present towards it.
Okay, that's strong anticipation. What's weak?
Weak anticipation, or exo-anticipation, is just using a model of an external system, like checking a weather forecast. You're predicting the weather, but your prediction isn't causing the rain. You're just modeling something outside yourself.
Got it. And both types are happening all the time and are nested now.
Constantly. Our reality is shaped by both efficient causation, the push from the past, and final causation, the pull from the future, all interacting within the layers of our present moment.
It also matters how we philosophically divide things up, doesn't it? These different cuts.
Yeah, absolutely. The classic Cartesian cut, mind versus body, res cogitans versus res extensa, that created the whole mind-body problem that philosophers have wrestled with for centuries.
Modern ideas challenge that.
Big time. Embodiment theories emphasize how deeply our minds are shaped by and inseparable from our physical bodies and their interactions with the world. The cut isn't so clean.
Then there's the cut in quantum physics.
The Heisenberg cut. This one radically blurs the line between the observer and the observed system. Quantum mechanics tells us that the act of measuring inevitably disturbs the system. Measuring means interfering. So there are no purely detached observers, only observer participants who are inherently part of the reality they're measuring.
Well, and the Ressler cut goes even further.
Yeah, Ressler suggests pushing that boundary even further inside, including the human observer participant within the system being described. His point is that we can ultimately only ever observe the interface between him and the world. We can't access the world itself or even ourselves itself directly, only that boundary where they meet.
Like we're stuck looking at the surface of a mirror.
Kind of. He even references Roger Boskovich's covariance principle, which suggests that from an internal perspective, you couldn't tell the difference between all your internal motions reversing in time versus the entire external world reversing in time. All you perceive is the relationship, the interface.
This feels connected to those strange loops you mentioned earlier from Hofstadter.
Exactly. Douglas Hofstadter's strange loops, or tangled hierarchies. Think of M.C. Escher's drawing of two hands, each one drawing the other. It's circular causation seemingly trapped on one level.
How do you resolve that loop?
Hofstadter says you step back, you zoom out to reveal an inviolate level, a level that exists outside the loop and cannot be influenced by it. In Escher's drawing, the inviolate level is Escher himself, the artist drawing the hands that draw each other.
Okay, so this constant interplay of inside-outside, hidden levels, revealed levels.
Yeah.
It's fundamental to how we construct reality. And it's not just abstract philosophy. It affects how we process everyday information, even our health.
Precisely. How we filter sounds, how we see things, how our bodies feel. It's all tied into this complex, layered, boundary-blurring reality, and the implications for health and well-being are huge.
Rhythms of life synchronization, health, and social glue.
Right. This is where all that theory we've been exploring really starts to hit home, becoming incredibly practical and relevant to everyday life. Our perception, as we've hinted, isn't passive at all. It's not like a camera obscura just taking in light.
It's active.
Intensely active. The source material beautifully describes it as a process where emissions, both from the outside and from within us, create interference patterns which form the wallpaper in our brains.
Emissions from within us, like what?
Get this. Your inner ear actually produces tiny sounds. They're called otoacoustic emissions. And these internal sounds can literally interfere with the external sounds you're trying to listen to.
No way. My ear is making noise that affects my hearing.
Yep. It's a constant internal symphony interacting with the world's orchestra. And it's cross-modal, too.
Meaning different senses mixed together.
Exactly. Take speech perception. It's not just auditory. Your brain integrates tactile input, too. You subtly register tiny puffs of air aspiration that come with sounds like pa or ta hitting receptors on your skin.
I never noticed that.
Your brain does. It's integrating hearing, touch, maybe even visual cues from lip reading, all into one unified, seamless experience of someone talking. It's this active, multi-sensory construction job happening constantly.
And these internal processes, these filters, can actually blind us sometimes. You mentioned change blindness.
Yeah, it's fascinating and a bit scary. You can literally fail to notice huge changes in your environment if they happen during a brief interruption, like someone walking behind a door. There was an experiment where they swapped the person someone was talking to.
And they didn't notice.
Often no, because our brains are often processing successive impressions moment to moment and don't always link them perfectly, especially if our attention, our temporal depth for that specific thing is low.
And even crazier is attentional blindness, right? Where the thing is right there the whole time.
Even wilder, yeah. All the information is physically available, simultaneously present right in front of your eyes. But if you're not actively paying attention to it, you simply do not perceive it.
That's the famous gorilla experiment.
The classic. People are asked to count basketball passes between players in white shirts. They get so focused on that task that about half of them completely fail to see a person in a full gorilla suit walk slowly through the middle of the players, beat their chest, and walk off.
It sounds impossible not to see that.
But it happens consistently. Our perception is incredibly powerfully selective. What you attend to largely determines your reality in that moment.
And then there's mindlessness, being trapped by categories.
Yeah, this is researcher Ellen Langer's concept. It's this rigid reliance on past categories and ways of thinking, basically entrapment by category. The example given is brilliant.
Let's hear it.
Imagine someone offers you $10,000 cash right now for a 7-foot by 3-foot piece of solid wood. You desperately need the money. You rack your brain, where can I find that? Lumberyard. Too far.
Yeah.
You give up. The next day, you smack your forehead. Your own front door. You could have just unhinged your door, but your mindlessness, your rigid category of door, prevented you from seeing it simultaneously as just a piece of wood. That rigidity reduced your temporal depth, your ability to hold multiple contexts at once.
Wow. That cost you 10 grand.
Yeah.
Okay, how does this connect to health? This lack of context, lack of complexity?
Well, the sources argue quite compellingly that this lack of context, this reduced temporal depth, equates to a fundamental lack of complexity. And this loss of complexity, according to researchers like Bruce West, can actually manifest as pathological conditions. His provocative idea, disease is a loss of complexity.
The loss of complexity. So like systems becoming too rigid, too simple in the responses.
Exactly. Healthy systems tend to have variability, adaptability, richness. Disease systems often become more rigid, more predictable, losing that fractal complexity. And this is where downward causation becomes really important.
Higher levels affecting lower levels.
Right. Our mental states, our ability to contextualize, our stress levels, these higher conceptual levels can have real causal impacts on lower physiological levels, like our immune function, our cellular health, our heart rate variability. It's not just mind over matter, it's mind shaping matter through these nested levels.
Because our mind is embodied, right? Cognition and body are interacting constantly.
Inseparably. Cognition takes place in constant interaction with the state of the body, and it's often a circular causality. Does frowning make you feel irritated, or does feeling irritated make you frown?
Well, probably.
Likely both. There are experiments showing that just adopting a slumped, defeated posture makes people give up on difficult anagram puzzles more easily. Your physical state acts as a control parameter on cognition, influencing your thoughts, feelings, and decisions in this continuous feedback loop.
And this idea of embodiment goes even deeper with those orders.
Yeah, Thomas Metzinger talks about different orders of embodiment. Simple robots might be first order. More advanced robots or animals with basic self-models, second order. Humans, capable of explicitly modeling themselves as selves, are third order. And he sees fractality here too.
How so?
Our complex cognitive processes are nested in a physical body, which is nested in an environment, nested in society, nested in the universe. It's this massive, multi-scale fractal cascade of being.
Which leads to that really profound quote, all communication is internal communication.
Otto von Neuwenhuis, yeah. His idea is that our very sensation of context of the world around us is ultimately the sensation of the cells within our own body reacting and resonating. In a poetic sense, the universe becomes our mirror, reflected in our internal state.
Okay, wow. This ties beautifully into synchronization, doesn't it? The science of sync.
Perfectly. Stephen Strogatz's work on coupled oscillators is key here. Think about huge swarms of fireflies in Southeast Asia, all starting to blink in perfect unison.
How do they do that? Is there a leader?
No leader. That's the amazing part. Or think of pacemaker cells in your heart coordinating the beat, or even planets settling into stable, synchronized orbits over millennia. These systems synchronize spontaneously without an external conductor. It's self-organization.
And it's often beneficial, like the fireflies.
Yeah, for the fireflies, blinking together makes them much more visible to potential mates over long distances. Synchronization can be highly adaptive.
But it can go wrong, too.
Yep.
You mentioned pathological feedback.
Right. Unwanted phase locking can be dangerous. Think of those epileptic seizures, again, neurons firing in rigid hypersynchrony. Or even just the annoying shriek of audible feedback you get when a microphone gets too close to its speaker in a hearing aid or PA system.
Yeah. That's a feedback loop getting locked.
Exactly. It's when the rhythms get stuck in a single repeating pattern, losing that healthy complexity, reducing temporal depth.
So when does synchronization become really powerful, really positive, that kairos moment?
Yes, the kairos moment, the ancient Greek concept of the right, opportune moment. Our sources suggest this emerges from a convergence. Having those simultaneous or nested temporal levels of description, that rich fractal structure, and achieving phase locking between key rhythms within that structure, like those musical overtones locking into a harmonious chord, it's a moment of perfect alignment, timing, and resonance.
And speaking of sound, let's talk noise. White noise versus pink noise.
Right. White noise, like TV static, contains all frequencies at roughly equal intensity. Because it contains everything, it's considered a most fertile context imaginable. You can kind of project any expectation onto it or hear patterns in it, like in Ganzfeld experiments. It's pure potential, undifferentiated.
But pink noise is different. It's fractal.
That's right. Like we discussed earlier, pink noise, or 1F noise, is a temporal fractal. It has that specific relationship where lower frequencies are more intense, mirroring patterns found all over nature, music, heartbeats, river flows, even stock market fluctuations sometimes. It's an intermediate range fractal, sitting somewhere between perfect order and pure chaos.
And humans like this.
We seem to. There's evidence for what's called fractalphilia, an innate human aesthetic preference for fractal structures. Our brains actually seem more efficient at processing fractals, evoking neural synchrony, and binding information together when looking at something like the Mandelbrot set compared to simpler, non-fractal images.
It's not just pretty, it's functional for our brain.
It seems so. And it links to well-being. Studies show that looking at natural scenes or images with mid-range fractal dimensions around D1.3 to 1.5, think fluffy clouds, coastlines, tree canopies, some abstract art like Jackson Pollock.
Okay.
These are the most effective at reducing physiological stress. It's not just that they're natural, it seems to be the specific fractal dimension that resonates with us. And pink noise itself has been shown to have stress-reducing effects, potentially helping restore our internal systems to more efficient functioning and healthier fractal spectra. It literally seems to calm our nervous system.
Wow, okay, this all circles back beautifully to empathy and those mirror neurons, doesn't it?
It really does. Those incredible brain cells that fire not just when we do something, but when we watch someone else do it, or even just imagine it. They allow us to simulate others' actions, and crucially, their mental states, the foundation of empathy.
But you mentioned empathy might be declining.
Worryingly, yes. Some studies suggest a decline, particularly among college students in the U.S. over recent decades. Potential factors cited include the shift from face-to-face interactions to virtual ones, and maybe increased exposure to violent media that desensitizes. And we know empathy can be modulated. Doctors, for instance, sometimes unlearn to empathize or suppress their mirror neuron activity as a coping mechanism to deal with patient suffering without burning out.
It's a defense mechanism, but it has a cost.
A significant cost. And while we can resist mirroring, you don't have to automatically feel sad just because someone near you is crying. The flip side is also true. Constantly simulating negativity can be damaging. Remember Nietzsche's warning. If thou gaze long into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into thee. Who we mirror matters.
Okay, so if our brains are wired to perceive time, space, reality, even empathy in this incredibly complex, layered, fractal way, can we actually gain some control over it? Can we consciously choose to modulate our own experience of time, our mood, our connection to others?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can we become active sculptors of our own temporal reality? Let's find out.
Bending time, mood, complexity, and the art of nesting.
We've all felt this one, right? Time absolutely flies when you're having fun.
And crawls when you're miserable or bored.
Exactly. It's not just a saying. Our sources directly link this to that idea of temporal depth.
Yeah.
Depth. When you're happy, engaged, maybe your now is richer, filled with more simultaneous connections, more layers.
That seems to be the correlation. An increase in meta depth, more simultaneity being processed, and time feels wonderfully compressed, it speeds up. Conversely, a reduction in net depth, fewer layers, less going on simultaneously in your perception, and time subjectively stretches out, slows down.
And get this, the actual speed of your own thoughts can apparently influence your mood directly.
Yeah, this is wild. Experiments have shown that artificially speeding up people's reading rate, even if they're just reading nonsense words, can actually improve their mood. It creates feelings of energy, power, even creativity, almost like a mild manic state.
Whoa. Just reading faster makes you feel better.
Seems like it can. And conversely, experimentally slowed down thinking is strongly linked to feelings of depression and lethargy.
So the hypothesis here is really profound. It's not just about general brain speed, but maybe it's about nesting speed.
That's the term the source uses, yeah. The idea is that a fast increase in temporal depth, rapidly creating new simultaneous connections, seeing new layers, building context quickly, that is what generates a positive mood.
Like zooming out on Google Earth really fast, you instantly see more context, more layers.
That's a great analogy. That action rapidly generates depth by adding loads of new context and details simultaneously and subjectively. It feels like time speeds up during the zoom. Staying zoomed way in on one single unchanging level, conversely, feels like it slows time down.
This connects powerfully to memory and mood too, doesn't it? You said if a task feels shorter, we remember it more fondly.
Right. If you underestimate the duration of something, maybe because you were in flow or just enjoying it, you tend to rate it as more enjoyable in retrospect.
And for people experiencing depression,
the sources suggest there is often a profound mismatch of retention and pretension, a disconnect between their memories, retentions, and their ability to anticipate or look forward to the future, pretensions. A significant reduction in positive anticipation effectively cripples their ability to generate temporal depth for positive contexts.
they can't build those positive future layers into their now.
It seems that way. Their now becomes dominated by retentions, often negative memories or ruminations about the past, and their anticipatory filter might be skewed to focus primarily on potential negative outcomes. They miss opportunities to build positive context, to add new, hopeful layers of meaning.
And the result is that subjective slowing of time.
If your ability to generate new depth is compromised, yes, new information or stimuli just get slotted into existing, often limited or negative, frameworks. No new insights, no new connections are easily formed, so time feels like it's dragging because nothing truly new is happening in the structure of their now.
This brings us back to causality in these nested systems, that downward causation idea.
Exactly. Higher levels influencing lower levels. We see it physiologically. Those fast neural oscillations are nested within slower metabolic rhythms, like breathing. Changes at the metabolic level, maybe through stress or relaxation, can directly impact the patterns of neural firing. The layers influence each other.
And the boundaries between these layers, these systemic holes, are flexible, negotiable.
Highly negotiable. Think about incorporating a prosthetic limb, a neural implant, or even just mastering that walking stick. You create a new systemic hole. You redraw the boundaries of self to include the tool or technology, shifting the dynamics of the entire nested system.
And here's another mind bender. Our internal rhythms are fundamentally anticipative. We live in the future.
Isn't that amazing? Our moment-to-moment experience, the continuous creation of temporal depth, isn't just processing the past. It intrinsically involves both efficient causation, the push from what just happened, and final causation, the pull from our goals, intentions, and anticipations.
It's this constant dance between where we've been and where we're going, all unfolding right now.
A dynamic interplay, shaping our present reality from both ends of the temporal spectrum.
So, okay, what if the ultimate mastery of time isn't just about tweaking your mood or feeling like time passes faster? What if it's about achieving a state where time itself actually condenses? Where the future collapses into the present in a flash of pure, instantaneous insight?
Now you're talking about something truly extraordinary, beyond flow, beyond normal perception, into the realm of insight, and maybe even timelessness.
Beyond the clock, insight, timelessness, and the ultimate condensation.
Okay, let's push past even that deep flow state. Think about the story of Tommy the Pinball Wizard from the Who's rock opera. The lyrics suggest he surpassed that stage of just being in flow. He became part of the machine. He formed a new systemic whole by completely recalibrating his body map to assimilate the pinball machine's internal dynamics, the flippers, the bumpers, the ball's trajectory.
His actions and the machine's reactions became one seamless loop.
Exactly. The player becomes this temporally extended observer participant. It's not just focus. It's emerging so complete that the boundary between player and machine functionally disappears for him.
This perfectly sets the stage for an even more intriguing kind of temporal distortion, what our sources call time condensation.
Condensation, like squeezing time.
Kind of. It happens when those self-similar nesting cascades, the layers within layers within layers of time can be navigated or translated between effortlessly, almost instantaneously.
Okay, what would that look like mathematically?
Well, in an idealized model, temporal depth, that depth, would approach infinity, an infinite number of simultaneous layers, while temporal length, tlength, would approach zero.
Infinite layers in zero time. That sounds like an explosion of information.
Precisely. An explosion of information or understanding compressed into an infinitesimal moment.
And this, the sources propose, is how we might understand moments of profound insight.
Exactly. That instantaneous realization of a highly complex idea. Think about anecdotes of great thinkers or artists. Mozart famously claimed he could perceive entire compositions at a glance, not hearing them note by note sequentially, but grasping the whole intricate structure in one timeless flash.
Wow. As if you saw the whole symphony laid out at once.
Right. Which connects to Roger Penrose's ideas. He speculates that such insights might involve a kind of non-algorithmic, perhaps non-temporal access to a timeless world, maybe like Plato's realm of perfect forms or ideas. Our normal conscious interaction with the physical world, Penrose argues, is generally algorithmic. It takes time, it computes step by step. But insight feels different. It feels immediate.
Like Bach's Art of Fugue. You mentioned even when music stops, the whole structure still feels there.
Exactly. There's a sense of a complete, complex entity existing outside us linear unfolding in time. So condensation is this theoretical point where at length collapses towards zero and at depth explodes towards infinity and then perhaps resolves, delivering this huge packet of understanding or creation in an instant.
The source material even tries to define condensation velocity and condensation acceleration, derived from depth and length.
Yeah, it gets pretty mathematical. For perfectly self-similar fractals, the model suggests the condensation velocity would actually equal the scaling factor of the ratio between the layers.
And there's this almost mystical idea of the prime.
Yes, the prime. Conceived as a kind of temporal natural constraint, an indivisible fundamental time interval that cannot itself host further nestings. It's inherently timeless, forming the ultimate boundary between time and timelessness.
Like the smallest possible tick of the universe's clock.
Sort of, but maybe more like the fundamental frequency or scaling factor. The idea is there's a prime structure constant, PSC, connected to this, which sets the fundamental scaling that recurs on all levels of description, LODs. This leads to a kind of scale relativity, where space-time itself is conceptualized as being bent or structured relative to this universal constant. It's blurring physics, perception, and mathematics in a really fascinating way.
Okay, bringing this back down to Earth slightly, how does trust fit into this condensation picture? You said it reduces complexity.
Right. Sociologist Niklas Luhmann had this brilliant insight. Trust is our most powerful means for reducing the complexity of the world. Think about it. When you trust someone or a system, you essentially stop calculating all the possible risks and outcomes.
You just assume it will be okay.
You anticipate a positive outcome, effectively assigning the future to your now. Luhmann called it a risk, inherently unaccountable, a bridge of trust. You extend into the unknown. In our fractal terms, trust seems to involve an initial increase in shear depth. You suddenly see the situation as a coherent whole. You form a gestalt, perhaps recognizing trustworthiness, which then allows for a massive reduction of complexity because you no longer need to track all the individual parts and possibilities.
So seeing the bigger picture lets you ignore the details you don't need to worry about.
Exactly. You embrace simultaneity, which then simplifies your world.
Well, and this links to intuition.
To thin slicing. Absolutely. Malcolm Gladwell popularized thin slicing in his book, Blank. The idea that our snap judgments made incredibly quickly with very little information are often surprisingly accurate, sometimes even more accurate than careful, lengthy analysis.
Why would that be?
Because, Gladwell argues, our unconsciousness is incredibly good at finding underlying patterns based on very narrow slices of experience. It taps into that fractal nature of reality, where often the essential information about the whole is present in all of its parts. If reality has this self-similar structure, a thin slice can reveal the whole pattern.
Like those examples. The marriage expert predicting divorce in minutes. Or guessing which surgeons get sued based on their tone of voice.
Exactly. It wasn't about the surgeon's technical skill in the study Gladwell cited, but subtle cues in short voice clips, things like warmth, concern, how much they listened. Those thin slices reveal the deeper pattern of their interaction style, their ability to create connection, maybe their inherent temporal depth in relating to patients.
And this ability, this complexity reduction through intuition, can be trained by forming better gestalts, better metaphors.
The idea is yes, by getting better at recognizing overarching patterns and forming meaningful wholes, you can improve your thin slicing ability, your intuition. It's like learning to see the forest through the trees, instantly grasping the essential pattern.
Okay, so if our perception of time, our reality, is so deeply tied to these internal dynamics, these layers, these boundaries, what does that ultimately mean for the nature of now itself? Can we ever truly step outside it? Or are we fundamentally bound by our perspective?
That's the big question hanging over all of this. What is this now that we inhabit? Let's explore its cosmic implications and our personal power within it.
The now-defined cosmic implications and personal power.
Let's zoom out again, way out, maybe even to a cosmic perspective for a moment. Kurt Vonnegut's novel, Slaughterhouse-Five, gives us that unforgettable image of the Tralfamadorians.
Ah, yes. Aliens who experience time differently.
Totally differently. They perceive all moments simultaneously. Past, present, future, all existing at once, visible to them like a vast mountain range or like luminous spaghetti. And for them, our human experience of time, one moment following the next, is like being trapped inside a steel sphere rolling along a track, only able to peek out through a tiny pipe and see one little dot of succession at a time.
It's such a powerful metaphor. And it echoes concepts in physics, like Minkowski space, where you have the 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time all woven together. Space and time aren't separate. They're inextricably intertwined in a 4-dimensional block universe.
And our understanding of time itself has changed so much through history, hasn't it?
Dramatically. You had Newton thinking of absolute true and mathematical time that just flowed evenly, universally, without relation to anything external. A single cosmic clock for everyone.
But Leibniz disagreed.
Leibniz saw time differently, more relationally. For him, time wasn't a container. It was just the relations between events, a measure of change.
And then Einstein blew it all up again.
Pretty much. With relativity, he showed time dilation, the relativity of simultaneity, the observer's perspective being crucial. Time isn't absolute. It depends on your motion and gravity. But interestingly, even Einstein seemed to feel that the subjective experience of now belonged only to consciousness, that it had no physical counterpart in the objective equations of the universe.
But quantum theory brought the observer back into the physical picture.
Fundamentally, in quantum mechanics, the observer-participant isn't passive. Their active measurement seems to actively influence reality, causing the wave function to collapse, effectively creating an individual temporal observer perspective.
Like John Wheeler's 20 questions analogy.
Exactly. In that game, the answer doesn't really exist until you start asking specific yes-no questions. Wheeler suggested reality might be similar. It doesn't fully exist in a definite state until we ask a question through measurement or observation. Our participation shapes the now.
Okay, and then there are ideas about time having an internal direction, like Prigoghine's internal time T.
Right. Ilya Prigogine explored the arrow of time arising from thermodynamics and irreversible processes. And closely related is the whole field of deterministic chaos, kicked off by Ed Lorenz and the butterfly effect.
Sensitive dependence on initial conditions, SDIC.
Exactly. Tiny, almost imperceptible changes in the starting point of a complex system can lead to wildly different outcomes later on. It means that even if a system is technically deterministic, following fixed rules, it can be completely unpredictable in practice over the long term, because you can never know the initial conditions perfectly. Our now is incredibly sensitive.
And this fractal idea we keep coming back to, some theories propose it applies to space-time itself.
Yes. Researchers like Laurent Notel, Garnet Ord, and Mohammed El-Nashi have developed theories where space-time itself has a fractal geometry. Its properties, its very dimensionality, might be resolution-dependent. What you measure depends on the scale you're probing.
How could that relate to something like Parkinson's disease?
Notel, for instance, suggested that Parkinson's might involve a kind of scale mismatch, patients making right movements on the wrong scale, a breakdown in the fractal coordination of movement across different levels. And fascinatingly, he proposed that potential therapies might involve finding ways to catapult the patient onto the right spatiotemporal scale, maybe using rhythmic entrainment or fractal stimulation.
Mind-bending. And this ties back to Ressler's idea of our private event horizon.
Precisely. Ressler's microconstructivism emphasizes that our subjective now is our personal boundary with reality. We can only ever know the interface between him and the world. Different internal states, different endo-perspectives will inevitably lead to different perceived realities, even if the external physical world is identical. Your reality is constructed at that interface.
So the human now is this active creation.
According to researchers like Ernst Poppel, yes. He identified core experiences of time, simultaneity, succession, duration, and the now itself. He argued the subjective now is generated by an integration performance carried out by our brains, binding sensory information arriving within a window of about 3 seconds into these indivisible gestalts, these meaningful wholes.
And he even linked the richness of our now to language.
Yeah, suggesting that the richer and more differentiated someone's language is, the more complex and extended their subjective now can become. Language helps us structure and layer our experience.
It all feels very connected, like David Bohm's idea of the implicate order.
Bohm's holographic view, yes. The idea that the universe is fundamentally self-similar, and each part, in some way, contains information about the whole. Our mind and body are like subtotalities, reflections or unfoldings of a deeper, higher dimensional ground of reality. Everything is interconnected.
But there's a limit, right? The Gödel limit. We can't fully step outside.
That seems to be the fundamental constraint. As temporal beings embedded in time, we cannot jump out of the system to observe it from a truly objective, timeless exo perspective. Our embodied minds, being part of the flow, can only ever generate endomodels experienced from within the stream.
Which opens up really speculative ideas about artificial intelligence, neo-sentient machines.
Those Siemens concepts, yeah. He envisions machines that are not just intelligent but truly sentient because they are embodied, embedded in the world, can compensate for delays, possess mirror competence, a form of empathy, and critically can observe and operate from a time-centric perspective at scales completely inaccessible to humans, from the nano level to geological eons.
Like the benevolence engine, a machine designed for long-term well-being.
Exactly. These are thought experiments pushing the boundaries of what consciousness and time perception might mean beyond the human scale.
It makes you think about projects like the Long Now Foundation's Millennium Clock.
Absolutely. That giant clock being built inside a mountain designed to last 10,000 years. A clock that ticks once a year, bongs once a century, and the cuckoo comes out every millennium.
Just incredible.
Its whole purpose isn't just engineering, it's psychological. It's meant to make us humans aware of vastly longer timescales, to reframe the way people think about their fleeting now and encourage longer-term responsibility.
So ultimately, maybe our well-being, our sanity even, depends on how well we navigate these nested temporal scales, how skillfully we nest and denest our perceptions.
It seems crucial, recognizing that some rhythms are beyond our influence, like astronomical cycles, but others we can potentially influence, like our breathing, our focus, our social interactions.
Yeah.
Healthy systems, the sources consistently suggest, have that rich range of internal rhythms, that fractal complexity.
So if things go wrong, if we become temporal misfits like Vonnegut's maniacs in the fourth dimension, whose problems stem from causes inaccessible to their normal perception, how do we gain mastery? How do we handle this fluid, layered reality?
This brings us to one final, powerful, almost mythical concept that weaves many of these threads together: the legend of the basilisk. Can this ancient monster and the stories of how to defeat it actually illuminate our path to mastering time?
Here be dragons. Or basilisks. Let's find out.
Outlook, here be dragons, and the ultimate mastery of time.
The myth of the basilisk is properly chilling, isn't it? This legendary serpent or dragon that could kill with just a glance.
Yeah, and it petrified its victims, literally froze them in time, turned them to stone.
Our sources offer a really fascinating interpretation of this myth through the lens of temporal perception. The idea is that the basilisk's fixed, unwavering stare overwhelms the victim's perceptual system. It causes their mirror neurons to perform the same action, to lock onto that single intense input.
So it collapses their temporal depth.
Exactly. It reduces their temporal perspective to one level of description. The victim perceives nothing but the gaze, trapped in a single static, suffocating moment of now, unable to generate any new layers or context, frozen in time.
But the myth also gives us the defense, the mirror.
The mirror, reflecting the basilisk's gaze back upon itself, destroys it. The interpretation here is powerful. If a person could consciously simulate the basilisk's deadly focused gaze within themselves, withstand that intensity, perhaps even return it without being overwhelmed, they could achieve immunity.
It suggests a kind of internal mastery over focus and temporal depth, a battle fought within perception itself.
Precisely, a battle for control over your own now. And this ancient myth finds these strange echoes in modern science fiction, like the concept of the light weapons.
The light.
What's that stand for?
Phenomenological imaging technique. In stories by David Langford, these are weaponized images, often fractal patterns, so complex, so dense with self-referential, strange loops, that they literally overload the human mind.
Like the parrot pattern.
Exactly. It blows the brains of everyone who looks at it by breaking the brain's ability to process, maybe exceeding its go-to limits, its capacity to handle self-reference without crashing. Instant cognitive meltdown.
Terrifying. But even in the fiction, there's a defense. Immunity is possible. Yes, through conditioning. Langford's characters in the Shutter Club train themselves by exposure to progressively more complex but less lethal BLIT patterns. They achieve immunity through a kind of gradual deactivation of their mirror neurons.
They learn to not process it.
Yeah.
To shut down that mirroring response.
Essentially, yes. Which brings us right back to that real-world parallel. Doctors sometimes learning to switch off or drive down their own mirror neuron activity to protect themselves from the constant influx of patient suffering. It prevents burnout, but the cost is often reduced empathy, a blunting of that connection.
Protection versus connection. It's a fundamental trade-off.
It seems to be, and this highlights two fundamentally different ways we can interact with our complex temporal reality, two paths described in the source material: accommodation versus assimilation.
Okay, break those down. Accommodation.
Accommodation is like adding on external tools or extensions, getting new glasses, upgrading your internet speed, learning a new software program. The boundaries between you and the extension remain visible, and any delays or imperfections are usually noticeable. You adapt to it, but it stays separate.
And this mode isn't enough.
According to the source, this mode is not enough to withstand the gaze of the basilisk or to truly control duration. It's like putting a patch on something, an external fix. It doesn't change your fundamental internal structure.
So assimilation is the deeper path.
Assimilation is far more profound. It's about truly incorporating the extension, fundamentally rewriting the body map itself. Think of the walking stick becoming transparent, or the monkey compensating for the robot arm's delay, or developing deep trust in someone.
The boundaries become invisible.
The internal boundaries become transparent. Delays are compensated for internally through powerful endo-anticipation. The tool or the other person becomes part of your extended self. This is the path that potentially provides the ability to return the gaze of the basilisk, and crucially, the profound ability to modify duration itself.
So intuition, that thin slicing, is an example of assimilation, grasping the whole instantly.
A perfect example of assimilation in action, rapidly incorporating complex patterns into a meaningful gestalt, reducing complexity from the inside out.
Okay, this all leads beautifully to the final, powerful metaphor for duration itself.
Yes, the ultimate takeaway, perhaps. Duration is friction resulting from a lack of contextualization, a lack of temporal depth.
Duration is friction. Wow, explain that.
When we narrow our focus too much, like staring at that kettle, we reduce our it depth. We strip away the simultaneous layers, the context. This lack of context creates a kind of perceptual friction, and time feels like it's dragging, grinding.
But if we can add temporal depth, add context, see more layers, more connections,
then we effectively lubricate the system. By increasing simultaneity and nesting, by seeing the bigger picture, we reduce that friction, and time subjectively flows more smoothly, maybe even speeds up. We can consciously choose to lubricate a system or grind it to a halt by how we manage our attention and context our deep depth.
and trust. Trust is the ultimate lubricant.
In this framework, yes. Trust is described as the ultimate observer-participant extension. It acts as a powerful lubricator because it allows you to bypass the need for constant monitoring and calculation. By embracing and incorporating the future into the present through anticipation and reliance, you achieve a profound reduction in complexity.
It's a different kind of condensation than sudden insight.
Right. It's not necessarily a flash of genius, but rather a smooth condensation where the anticipation of a potentially long and complex future interval is collapsed confidently and efficiently into your now. It's about choosing to reduce friction by actively incorporating the future. Outro. Wow, what an absolutely incredible journey we've been on today. Seriously mind-bending stuff.
Totally. We went from the everyday feeling of a watched kettle never boiling or getting lost in flow,
All the way to the superhuman perception of athletes under pressure, the deep time stretching of meditation.
and then dove headfirst into the fractal geometry of time itself, this idea of temporal depth and length shaping our reality.
We saw how our brain isn't just a passive receiver, but an active, amazing sculptor of our experience, performing corrective distortions, filling in missing information, integrating senses.
Creating our now from moment to moment. And we explored those nested rhythms, didn't we? From our own heartbeats and brainwaves syncing up with each other, and sometimes with the world around us.
Yeah, discovering the profound links between this internal complexity, synchronization, and our actual health, our empathy, even our mood. The idea that nesting speed affects how happy we feel is just wow.
And that we can literally bend time with our minds, or at least our perception of it. Then we push beyond the clock altogether, touching on those moments of ultimate condensation, instantaneous insight.
Where time seems to vanish and huge complexity is grasped in a flash. Mozart composing in his head.
Incredible. We've seen how our personal reality isn't just out there waiting to be perceived, but it's an active, continuous creation shaped by the flexible boundaries we draw and the rich context we build into our now.
So it really leaves us with this powerful closing thought, doesn't it? If our reality truly is a realization, an ongoing construction, and our perception of time is this active, creative process,
What new dimensions of ourselves, of the world, might we unlock if we consciously started playing with this? If we intentionally tried to fractalize our now to add layers to build context?
What incredible things could you, listening right now, achieve by actively choosing to lubricate your own temporal perspective, by reducing that friction?
So much to think about. We really hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and maybe left you with more questions than answers, but in the best possible way.
If you enjoyed this mind-bending exploration into the nature of time, please do share it with a friend who loves big, challenging ideas. Spread the temporal weirdness.
And for even more insights, exclusive content, and to support the show, please consider joining our amazing community by becoming a member. We'd absolutely love to continue these explorations with you.
Until next time, keep exploring the hidden depth, the incredible fractal architecture of your own truly amazing now.